On the morning of August 22nd, a quiet train ride in Charlotte, North Carolina turned into an unimaginable nightmare. Passengers watched as a young woman, a refugee who fled war in Ukraine, seeking safety in America, was brutally stabbed to death by a stranger. The attack happened in broad daylight, and it was unprovoked. And it was caught on surveillance video. Hello, and welcome to Crime Bytes, a show where we talk about some truly bizarre and disturbing crime cases. My name is Eliza. I've got Detective Scoop Dog here on my lap, and today we're going to look at a case that's been rocking the headlines and really just honestly rocking my mind this week. The victim was 23-year-old Iryna Zarutska. She had survived bombings in Ukraine, displacement, and the trauma of war, only to lose her life on a city train in the United States. The man accused of killing her was 34-year-old DeCarlos Brown Jr., a repeat offender diagnosed with schizophrenia, and at the time of the attack, he was evading the fare while riding the Lynx Blue Line train that day. Today, we're unpacking the story of Iryna's life and death, the disturbing history of her killer, and the questions that this crime has raised about mental health, public safety, and the systems meant to protect us. To understand the full tragedy of Iryna's death, we first need to know a little bit more about who she was. Iryna Zarutska grew up in Ukraine, and like so many young people, she dreamed of building a life filled with opportunities and freedom. She earned a degree in art and restoration, but in 2022, those dreams were violently disrupted when Russia invaded her homeland. The war tore through her community. Bombs fell near her home. Families fled in the middle of the night with whatever they could. Iryna was just 20 years old when she left her country behind. She arrived in the United States as part of a refugee program, settling in Charlotte, North Carolina. Iryna built a new life. She enrolled in English classes, worked part-time jobs, and made friends with other Ukrainians who had also fled the war. People who knew her described her as quiet but strong, someone who had endured unthinkable hardship but carried herself with resilience. She also had plans to become a veterinary assistant. She was known to enjoy reading on her commute and often rode the city's Lynx Blue Line. Who's loving this today? The light rail system connecting neighborhoods and business districts across Charlotte. That train was supposed to be part of her normal daily routine, but on August 22nd, this routine became a literal tragedy. It was a Thursday morning. Surveillance cameras captured Iryna boarding the Blue Line train at the East-West Boulevard station. She sat down quietly, scrolling through her phone. Behind her was another passenger, 34-year-old DeCarlos Brown Jr. Brown had not purchased his ticket. He was what transit police call a fare evader, but his problems went far deeper than skipping a train fare. He carried with him a small folding pocket knife, and the video shows no words exchanged between Brown and Iryna. No fight, no confrontation. Just for about 4 minutes, they would sit there just riding the train. Then, without warning, Brown pulled out his knife and just lunged at her. He stabbed her 3 times so quickly, once in the chest, once in the arm, and the fatal one in the neck. Within moments, it was too late for anyone to help, but from what we observed from the footage, initially we don't even see anyone trying to. Iryna collapsed in her seat and then rolled onto the floor in front of it, mortally wounded. After a couple of seconds, her blood would start leaking towards the exit door, and I don't think I am going to show that part on here. It's beyond horrific. I would think twice before watching the full video if you haven't yet. It's all over the internet right now. Brown walked calmly off the train at the next stop, and minutes later, police found him still on the platform with the bloody knife in his pocket, and he surrendered without any resistance. Iryna was pronounced dead at the scene. She had fled a war zone only to be killed in what should have been one of the safest places in her new home. So who is DeCarlos Brown Jr.? Court records reveal a very troubling past. Yeah. Brown had a long criminal history, multiple arrests, including violent offenses. He was also diagnosed with schizophrenia, which is a severe mental illness that, when it's left untreated, can cause paranoia, delusions, and violent outbursts. Despite this, Brown was repeatedly released back into the community, and his treatment wasn't monitored. So just months before the stabbing, he had been arrested for another violent incident. He was like calling the cops while talking to the cops, and he was released on a cashless bail. So instead of having to pay his bail that would be set, he basically got to sign a note saying that he would appear in court, which, can we admit this is a bad idea now? Local officials now admit that the system failed to keep track of him or ensure that he received proper treatment. You think? Neighbors described him as unstable. He drifted between homelessness and temporary housing. In the weeks before the attack, he had stopped showing up to his court-mandated check-ins as well. So there's another red flag. So then on August 22nd, the tracks in the system just culminated in this tragedy. Federal prosecutors would later call Brown's case an example of a perfect storm of failures. Mental health, criminal justice, public safety systems, all just breaking down at once. Like, there's so many places that it went wrong there. The murder of Iryna Zarutska sent shockwaves through Charlotte and beyond. I can't. Can you? I ran out. You ate them all. We're all demanding answers. Why was a man with a long criminal history and untreated mental illness riding freely on a public train? Within days, prosecutors charged Brown with first-degree murder under North Carolina law. But the case does not stop there. On September 9th, 2025, federal prosecutors stepped in as well, and they charged Brown under a law that makes it a federal crime to cause a death on a mass transit system. The penalty is life in prison or possibly even the death penalty. The FBI and the Department of Transportation both launched investigations exclaiming how Brown slipped through the cracks. Meanwhile, Charlotte's Transit Authority scrambled to respond. They promised more security officers on trains, better cameras, and an expansion of police presence. And that's great, but this man used a pocket knife. I don't know. I do have some experience with using an X-ray for security, and those things are not the easiest to find, and I was really good at it. So that will help possibly, and in this instance, maybe it would not have prevented this attack, in my opinion at least. Maybe more security would have stopped him from even getting on if he didn't have a fare. So there's that. More security for trains isn't a bad thing, but I don't know, it'll cost, and in this case, if you've watched the video, it happened so fast that, like, if he paid for his ticket and had a little pocket knife on him, he would be able to do it. Like, that's so scary. And either way, for Iryna's family scattered between the U.S. and Ukraine, none of these extra measures can or will undo what happened or take away any of the pain they feel from this. It's just a simply devastating attack. Iryna's murder raises haunting questions. Could this have been prevented? Should Brown have been in a secure treatment facility instead of off on the streets? Yeah, he should. He should never have been back on the streets. Experts point to a familiar cycle. Individuals with untreated severe mental illnesses are repeatedly arrested and jailed for short periods and then released without proper care. Communities struggle to balance compassion with safety, and tragedies like this one are the consequence. There are also questions about transit security. Unlike subways in cities like New York, Charlotte's light rail has little direct policing. Fare evasion is common, and on August 22nd of 2025, a fare evader with a small knife ended an innocent life. Public outrage has led to political pressure. State leaders are now debating reforms from stricter bail laws to expanded mental health funding. But as of today, these are only debates. The mayor of Charlotte wants it. It's easy in stories like this to get lost in the details of the crime, the suspect, the failures of the system, but at the center of it all was one young woman, Iryna Zarutska. She had survived war. She made it to America with the hope of safety and stability and a chance to start over. She was described as kind, thoughtful, and determined to build a new life. Her death is more than a crime statistic. It's the silencing of a story that could have gone on for decades. I'm angry too. Her friends and fellow refugees held vigils in Charlotte, remembering her resilience and her laughter. For them and for so many others, she is not just a victim, but a symbol of the fragility of safety and the urgency of change. On August 22nd of 2025, the promise of safety failed. A young woman who had already escaped the dangers of war lost her life, a place that was supposed to protect her. Which, can we just take a second, and especially if you are an American watching this, just reflect upon how absolutely wild that is. It's insane. I feel like we used to worry about going overseas, and now people are worried about coming here. My mom is a dual citizen, America and Scotland, and when she's over there, she says that people ask her how it is to live in such a dangerous country. I mean, she's a bit older, obviously, and her peers over there are as well, but still, she's got me looking up statistics about how likely you are to be murdered in other countries, and in America, it looks like it's 1 in 200 to 250, roughly. Whereas in Scotland, it's 1 in 100,000. That's a large difference. Japan was the lowest one noted on the stats I pulled with 1 in 500,000, which makes sense. I'm going to touch on the racism aspect because it really can't be ignored. DeCarlos was saying, "I got the white girl" on the cameras after he stabbed Iryna. And I've seen both ends of the spectrum online from, yeah, we've been oppressed for so long and this is what's coming and get ready for more attitude, which is frankly disgusting. And on the other end of the spectrum, I've seen some noose memes, which is also disgusting. It looks like this could have been partially racially motivated just because of his comments. He did say that she was reading his mind, which is where his schizophrenia would have come into play. So, I don't know. I would also be curious if something that she was looking at on her phone might have set him off. Like, I'm really just having such a hard time after watching that movie wrapping my head around this. But as to the racism, like, how ignorant. You're ignorant. How ignorant? I can't help myself. How ignorant do you have to be to still have that sort of mentality? I don't even care. Come for me if you want. You're ignorant. There's just not room for it at all, and it does divide us, and catering to it produces a mindset that produces acts like this, and it's unacceptable to go on either end of the spectrum. This murder needs to be looked at more as a mental health and legal system fuck up, and we need to fix the areas there. Not to mention Charlotte's mayor wanting to be quiet. I don't like that. Anytime you want to silence something like this, it's like, hey, give this video a share, guys. Come on, yeah. That's all I'm going to say about that. That's insane. There's a lot of criticism about the bystanders as well. I don't know. It looks like she needed help and someone ran to her after they did figure out what was going on, but the circle of people in her general area did nothing. I want to say I think the woman across from her did show some signs of shock, which it was shocking. She toppled over and bled out for a good minute or so before anyone did get back there to try and help, which I can't. We need to do better as humans. The case of Iryna Zarutska is still unfolding. DeCarlos Brown Jr. faces both state and federal charges and the possibility of spending the rest of his life behind bars, finally, or even death. But the larger story remains unfinished. How will we prevent the next tragedy? How do we protect both the vulnerable and the public? And what will it take for the systems designed to keep us safe to actually do their job? For now, we can remember Iryna and we can demand better, and we'll wait for justice. All right, guys, we'll be back to therapy on Tuesday, probably, maybe, if we don't shake things up again. I just had to talk about this case. I still don't even know how to put into words how much this one just rocked me. And I know it's not just me. Maybe it was seeing it. I think that was definitely a part of it. Just her fear and collapsing. I don't know. It just doesn't look real, but it is real. So until next week, guys, please stay safe out there. Bye.